The Nature of Data with Michael Washington.
The Azure and Devops podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using the latest in .NET, Azure, AI, and DevOps. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. The show is sponsored by ClearMeasure, a full-service software architecture and engineering firm. Find them at www.clearmeasure.com. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your host for helping you and your teams move fast and deliver quality and to run your software with confidence in Azure, all while using everything that the .NET ecosystem has to offer. I'm excited for today's show. We have a repeat guest from episode 286, Michael Washington. He's a ASP.NET and C# programmer who has extensive knowledge in process improvement, AI, and large language models, and student information systems. He's also the founder of the following websites, and they're numerous. We can't possibly list them all. BlazorData.net, AIStoryBuilders.com, BlazorHelpWebsite.com. All these are fantastic resources that help empower developers. Michael is currently residing in Los Angeles, California, with his son, Zachary, and wife, Valerie, and slinging code like it's nobody's business. Michael, welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
I am great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I've loved having you on the show every time we've done it. You've been on a number of times, and it's we'll include a link to the past episode in the show notes. For the people who maybe are hearing you for the first time or haven't been to a user group or conference where you speak, I'd like to just kind of go back, and you've done so much, but what are some of the highlights, just to let the listeners kind of know what your mindset is and how what's colored your career as you've working on your current projects?
Well, I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm a Microsoft Stack developer, mostly doing web app stuff. Currently, mostly doing Blazor, Azure-related things, also things related to Microsoft Fabric, which is what we're going to kind of get into. As far as my history, it actually goes back to when I was a teenager. My first applications, besides, Basica, was creating applications for my uncle's company using Access. Pretty sure I think it was Access 2.0. When I was a teenager. So my first applications were creating data-driven applications. Yeah, that's where my mindset comes from, is that we're going to dig all the way back into, I had to actually go back to when I was a teenager, some initial programs that I created. I actually had to look at them, and that went into the research for the topic that we're actually going to discuss today.
Nice. Yeah, so many developers have to work with data, but so many developers are not formally trained in how to think about it, how to use it, databases.
Right.
And you've done so much work with it. I thought let's get Michael on to talk about that. And hence the title of this episode, What is Data? And of course Azure has so many data related services, but from a developer's perspective, how do you sort it out and keep it straight in your mind about what the nature of data is and how developers should think about it?
So the only reason why I even got on this subject, because obviously we handle data in our applications all the time, right? Let's take a simple application where a person goes to a web page, they see a bunch of songs, they rate the songs that they like, and they hit a button, and some AI process says, you know what, here's some songs you haven't heard, but based upon your past preferences, these are things you might like. Very simple application, right? Is there data involved? Well, yeah, there's the songs that were already in the system. The person indicated what they are interested in, so that created a new data set. Then you did some transformations to create yet another list of these are the preferences. And you see, so data. So just like any of your listeners here, you don't really think about it. It's just something that is. The reason why it was interesting subject for me recently is I have a new project called Personal Data Warehouse. And Personal Data Warehouse was started It's a totally open source. It's free, open source. You go to blazerdata.net. You'll go to the GitHub and you can download it and play with the code. And so I'm not selling anything. But the reason why that started was I got really interested in Microsoft Fabric. Those who are not familiar with Microsoft Fabric, it is Microsoft's offering for essentially a data warehouse. It does encompass a lot of things. For example, Power BI has been folded into that. And if you've heard of Synapse in the past, that's been folded into that. If you've heard of products like Databricks, that sort of functionality is also inside it. So Fabric is a big umbrella. It's a wonderful, I don't know what to call it. It's a product, okay? It's a wonderful product.
Yeah.
I've used it a lot in professional endeavors. And in using it, I realize that there's certain things that it does that I go, you know what? I could make an open source light version to perform this task. Let me just code something up. So I kind of coded a little something up, put it on GitHub. Then there were some other things that I was doing in Fabric, and I was like, let me code this up, and I did that. So then I got to the point where I started building up this product called your own, quote unquote, personal data warehouse. And as I started adding more features to it, I realized if I try to keep up with Microsoft Fabric, and of course Microsoft is like a fire hose, right? They just push stuff out constantly. There's no way I can keep up. Right. So I decided to step back and say, what is the essence of what this product does? Well, it manages data. What is data? And that's what got me down this whole rabbit hole. And I've used the things I wanted to talk to you about today to develop the personal data warehouse. So it all ties back. But the first thing was I had to stop and say, even though I've been programming for over 40 years, I never really stopped and thought, what is data? And it wasn't so much what is data. It truly is what we think it is. But the why is data. That's the thing. So, everyone listening to us right now, if they stop and ask themselves, why do I collect and manage data in my applications? Now they're going to say, well, I know why. I don't think you do. Instinctively, you know what needs to be done. Fine. But the true, why am I collecting data? For me, the first time I ever even thought about that was earlier this year. So I guess I can just, skip to the point, which is I came up with a single sentence.
Okay.
The reason why we collect data is so that a human being can use that data to make decisions. And every single part of that sentence is important, including the word always. It's always so that it's for making decisions. There's no other purpose. The other thing is humans. A human at the end has some sort of desire that needs to be met, right? And that decision, in this case, the human needs to make a decision. You know what I'm saying? Which is whether it's, do I clean my house this morning? How dirty is it? Well, let's look at the data. Should I continue to work for this company? Is it paying my bills? Or you see what I'm saying? Which is the only purpose of this collection and data, and the only reason why we even create these applications is there's a human being somewhere.
Yeah.
That needs to make a decision.
Yeah.
Period. That's all they care about. So what that helped me do was it helped me focus on things. So for the personal data warehouse, I ended up getting rid of a lot of features. For example, I was going to go, I can have, Fabric has notebooks. I should have notebooks. After I looked at this new paradigm, I go, you know what? That's not needed to have the person use this tool to make a decision. Yeah. And the other thing, quickly, I wanted to add was I did come up with 3 phases of data. There's collection, there's transformation, and then there's reporting. Reporting is where the human makes a decision. Yeah. The collection part should be kind of obvious. The transformation part in the middle, that's the part which is not obvious. And when it's in relationship to Fabric and also the personal data warehouse, the reason why the transformation part is very, very important is that's where Microsoft makes their money. Microsoft makes their money because whenever your data needs to be transformed, It requires CPU, or GPU power. It requires compute power. Someone has to pay for that. Microsoft says it should be you. What my personal data warehouse product does, the only reason for anyone to even think about using it is that compute, you put it on your local computer. That's what you came for. And because it's on your local computer and you've already, I'm assuming, paid for your computer or already paying, making payment, whatever. You know what I'm saying? You're already paying for the thing. If the compute is happening on your computer, you're not having to pay some cloud provider. Ta-da! And that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
So you mentioned data warehousing, and I remember reading the Kimball Method series of books on data warehousing and learning about dimensional modeling and fact tables and dimension tables and the star schema and denormalization. And then, I guess long ago, there was a Kimball approach, and then there was an Inman approach. It's like
these are you're bringing back memories.
right. And so, but at the same time, I don't remember actually formally learning about that in my computer science program in the university long ago, and I don't know which ones formally teach it these days. But every developer has to intersect with it in some form or fashion, whether it's a small database or large database, and every software system has some type of reports and ship it this way and that way. In your opinion, how is it different? Are there just
I'm glad you asked
cloud
that.
features that are no longer useful, that were just bloat on the services, or are there some old techniques where we thought it was a good idea to do it this way, but we're understanding it better, and now you only need to know a few techniques? What's your take on it?
This is what I love the fact that you asked to talk to me about this, or allowing me to talk about this, because I spend every waking moment for the past year thinking about what you just talked about, which is, let's take it one by one. First, you talked about databases. It's obvious, right? I mean, you have your clients come to you every day. They're like, Jeff, I'm looking for whatever. And in your head, you're like, okay, based upon your budget and what we need, you have a database technology in your head, and you go from there. You're off and running. What I'm saying is, I've had to back up. And if we go back to that sentence, the only purpose of the data is that the human needs to make a decision. That's it. There's no technology. That does not dictate the technology. The other thing I said was, there's 3 phases of data: collection, transformation, and reporting, output and reporting.
Yeah.
So let's start back at the collection thing. 99% of the time, it's a database with my applications. However, with Fabric, what I found is that they use the industry standard, which is Parquet files. These are essentially text files. Very, very complex, but that's it. They don't. Now, of course, Microsoft Fabric did just add a SQL Server component into it, and just let's not go there. But essentially, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, the cloud providers, their data warehouses use Parquet files, which is not, for intents and purposes, is not what we would call a normal database. Okay. So therefore, when they say we're going to collect data, they say we're just going to collect it. It's been collected. It's in the Parquet file. You see what I'm saying? So technology just out of your head. So
when
therefore, all that stuff about star schema and stuff, it only applies if that's the technology we're using.
Gotcha.
But the collection, it happens, and then you move on to the next step. And that's kind of where my head's been.
Now, I don't know a whole lot about Parquet files. I know they exist, but just for the listeners, we'll include a link in the show notes from. We're talking about the Apache Parquet.
Yes.
It sounds like Parquet. That's how it's spelled, right? Parquet. Yeah.
Yep. So, but the point is, it's the industry standard for this is how you can compact as much data as possible into the smallest format, yet allow it to be quickly read. So I've had projects where we're moving 1 million rows a minute, from on-prem into the data warehouse. And that's only because we never have any sort of timing out problems. We could probably move about 4 million rows a minute. That's much faster than any other way you could think of. So that's pretty much the industry standard for collecting data. Now, to read the Parquet files, Fabric allows you to connect to it as if it's a SQL server and, read the data. You can even do updates. They have a format called Delta, creates a storage transaction file, blah, 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 gets into all the nitty gritty details. The only thing that's relevant to my personal data warehouse, open source project is it also uses Parquet files. When you import data into it, whether you import it through SQL Server, Excel file, a CSV file, when you hit save, it saves everything as Parquet files on your hard drive. And that is the collection piece. And I then moved on to transformations.
Interesting. So when I think of a document database, it's very much like, hey, what format is it in? Okay, just store another document. And then when reading it out, it's up to the consumer to transform it in some way.
Now, you do bring up an important point, which is I'm only talking about tabular data stored in columns and rows.
Mm-hmm.
If you, for example, had a bunch of contracts that were signed contracts and they're PDFs, that is unstructured data, and therefore everything I'm talking about is not applied to that. Structured data requires, of course, that's why the Microsoft Fabric has what they call a data lake that allows unstructured data to be stored and managed. That requires totally different processing things. And my product, I don't try to go there. The same principles still apply, which is, well, I'm gathering this unstructured data so that I can allow some human being to make a decision.
Yeah.
But I do want to say that I'm only talking about structured data, which is,
that's a good
data stored in columns and rows.
Yes. Because developers sometimes can get confused over what architectural category all these Azure services fall into. And so what I'm hearing, kind of simplifying it down, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you put the Fabric product in the category of a reporting database, an OLAP database, or just a structured data, and then you data lake for anything that might be document, file, binary, any kind of other unstructured
all that's
data.
considered Fabric, just so you know. All that's considered Fabric.
Oh, it still is.
And they consider the data lake the top one, and what I call data warehouse. So data warehouse is the structured data. So
Fabric is a
part
parent.
of Fabric. Huh?
So it's a parent-child product relationship. Fabric is considered everything
Fabric
data
is
now?
a product in the sense of Microsoft Office as a product.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's so big.
And Excel.
They don't understand how big it is. I mean, really, the people who this is what they do for a living, if you ask them, hey, what's happening in Fabric today? They're like, I don't know.
It's like what's happening at Microsoft today.
What's happening in Microsoft Office today? Like, ooh, is there a new Office feature? Are you aware of this? And someone who's probably a senior manager is like, I have no idea what you're talking about. This place is so big, I got nothing. Fabric is that big.
Okay.
So it's all considered. I'm saying it's all considered Fabric. What I'm saying is that my personal data warehouse, which is inspired by Fabric, okay, is only taking off a little sliver, which is, hey, structured data. We can move. I can show you how to do a lot of stuff that Fabric does, but you can do it on your local computer and save money, because for Fabric, it's a wonderful product. No, I have nothing bad to say about it. But the cheapest you can use Fabric is approximately $400 a month. So if you don't spend $400 a month, there's nothing in Fabric for you. Now, they do have a lot of trials, and some of these trials can last 6 months. So if you want to dig your toes into it, I would say go try it. But to use it, you're at $400 a month, and there are so many small organizations and just whatever that I'm like, can I give someone a free product that can do these features? Yet it runs on your local computer, and that's what I set out to do, and that's what the personal data warehouse does. Hopefully.
And so, how does someone get personal data warehouse? Is it a library, a service, an Aspire package? What does it look like?
So it's a Maui, and last time I think we talked, it was another Maui application I did. So I love Maui. It's funny. I love Maui for creating Windows applications. I don't use Maui for anything else. So people go, well, what about the Apple Store? I don't do any of that. So I love Maui for making Windows apps. So I made a Maui app Therefore, you can go into the Windows Store and you just search for Personal Data Warehouse, click the button, and boom, it's installed on your computer. If you go to blazerdata.net, there's a link to the GitHub, and obviously you can just clone the GitHub repo, hit the F5, and it just works. So when you open it up, you'll see an application that follows the three things I've been talking about, which is there's a place for collection. And like I said, you can use, you can pull in data either from Fabric, your SQL Server, Excel, a file, a CSV file, or even other Parquet files. Boom. You can even edit them. I have this Blazor data grid that you can edit the data right there in the application. Great. Let's move on. Step 2, transformation. And there's two things I do, or three things I do for you. Number 1, I allow you to do transformations using C# or Python, or you can use AI to write the transformation for you, meaning it'll create the C# or Python for you. And one more thing I even threw into there was for the AI part, you could either use, OpenAI or Azure OpenAI, or if you have Ollama installed locally on your computer, or even LM Studio, which is another free thing.
Everyone should.
Everyone should. Then you can use that for your LLM. So you don't have to, do anything. And then the last part, and this was another big one that I was surprised I was able to pull it off, for reporting, it uses Microsoft SQL Server reporting services. Now you're going to say to me, wait, you need a Microsoft Windows server to do Microsoft SQL Server reporting services. And I found an open source GitHub project where I was able to shove that functionality in the application. It truly creates SSRS reports in the application. You can even use the free Microsoft Report Builder to connect to it like it's a server and live edit reports or use AI to either create those reports or to actually have it, update and enhance your reports. And that's all built into the application. And
so just a visual report builder
is that you can then push the data back out to a SQL Server or to a Fabric warehouse. That's what it does.
So paint some scenarios. What are you using it for now?
Perfect. So here's some scenarios that I ended up using it for myself. I had some situations where we were creating, we're taking COBOL code and creating a C# version of it. So the COBOL code would create this massive, 80 column wide, sheet of data with hundreds of thousands of rows. Yeah. And then our C# code is supposed to do the same thing. And then you had to audit it, right? And of course, it's every column has to be compared to every column. And not only do you have to figure out where there was differences, but then I need those differences to be itemized. And again, you could go into ChatGPT and kind of describe what you want and, blah, blah, blah. But the way I was able to use this application to solve that problem was I just said, you know what, upload the stuff from the COBOL output, upload the one from the C# output, went to data transformations, hit the AI button and says, please create a detailed report that will indicate what differences, compare every single column, I want you to, go. And, and it writes this pretty complicated looking, C#. I like C#, but like I said, it does support Python because, whatever. But create this C# thing. And then I said, well, now run. And what happens is because there's hundreds of thousands of rows and like I said, pretty wide, it was kind of like chunk. And then I look at my task manager and the CPU thing was like pegged, right? So I was like, okay, go get a coffee, come back. I think it took 15 minutes. I come back and it's like, bam, here you go. And it's like, it was all, so.
Give you the answer.
It was all there. So I was like, yeah, that's what this thing is for. Other people, I think, would use it for if you imported your customers and your sales list and all that sort of thing, which you normally would do in Excel if you're an Excel power user. That is what it can replace.
Okay, so.
That's really what I think my true target audience was, which is people who are normally Excel power users. But Excel has its limitations, obviously. This thing is better than trying to get Excel to be more than it really is.
So a self-contained data warehouse. Now, you've got this on your GitHub account, right? GitHub.com/blazordata-net personal data warehouse.
Yes.
We'll include that link in the show notes. All right, so all the sources there.
Oh, yeah.
You've got it as a Windows Store Maui app, but I'm thinking, okay, this sounds really interesting. And for certain applications where you say, oh, you know what? I need this external data service in order to do this, but it's not on a huge scale. I don't have a ton of data. I just need to do it. I need to do a little bit of data warehousing. Sounds like even if I wanted to slice off the Maui screens, I could just use it for any application, right?
There's so many things that I feel. So let's take just a minute just to say where I think a person could really steal some things. The reporting one is start there. I think a lot of us have done a lot to give our end users reporting that if you realize what can be done here, so steal that first. Okay, so start grabbing that code. And again, I'm building upon what other people have done. So it's okay. The second place that I think you want to steal some code is the Parquet files. So my taking data and storing it as Parquet and then bringing it back up as Parquet is very compelling because a lot of times we're storing data in SQL servers that doesn't need to be there. Meaning, if you need to do rewrites, that is what SQL Server is good at. That's what you use it for. But things like log files, why?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that's a good place. If you're not familiar with Parquet, steal the code there. By the way, it uses a library called Python, Parquet.net. And if that library didn't exist, then I would not have an application at all. So give a shout out to that guy. The other place to steal some code is where I take data, the structure of the data, I pass it to the LLM of choice, and I'm using the Microsoft latest extensions, which that's what allows it to connect to all these various data LLMs without me having to do any extra work. So if you just steal that piece of code, but you'll see how I'm able to pass the structure of the data to the LLM, and then to have the LLM return a piece of code, and then I dynamically execute that code. If it's C#, I use a library called CS Script. If it's Python, I use a library called Pyodide. And then have that create a data set. And again, at this point, we don't know what that looks like. But then it returns it back to my C# code, and then I'm able to display it to the user. So there are certain situations where I think a person could find that useful in their applications where they want to allow their end users to describe a desire and then have a program dynamically created to do the processing and then return the results back to the person. So that would be the third thing where I think you might want to steal that. And not stealing it. It's MIT. It's within the license.
Sure,
There's no theft.
You know, that's an interesting thing I never considered. There's so many scenarios where whether it's IoT or Edge or just one program needing to save some data, you always have to decide what format am I going to save this as, or even if you're sending it over the wire. And in the absence of some industry standard format, we're always making up these formats. No, maybe it's just a JSON thing, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. But using these Parquet files, unless there's some other format that just calls out and says, okay, here's the native format, choosing some type of standard format,
it's a standard,
is useful.
It's a standard. Microsoft has a multi-billion-dollar product, and Parquet is what they're using. That's also what Google's using for their big data thing. Amazon for their data warehouse. It is the industry standard. It's actually the Apache Parquet format.
So it's almost like,
and it's my go-to. It is my go-to for everything. I found a hammer, and it's my hammer. When it comes to raw data, it's my hammer.
Okay, so here's then a wild question, because every application with open telemetry and centralized logging, every application still emits some log files. And I'm thinking, and then you get these specialized log file readers and mess with the formats and all that. And I'm thinking, would that problem be solved if the log file's native text file format was Parquet?
So Microsoft, again, inside Fabric, there's telemetry stuff inside there. And when you say, collect my telemetry data, Look under the covers. What is it using?
Right. So if we just changed our log file format, given it's column data, right?
Yep.
We changed the log file format to Parquet, would it then just natively allow super easy querying?
Yeah. The biggest thing is you get from Parquet is it's super compact. That's the number one thing you get. So I don't think anything can really match it as far as compactness. But then the second thing it does, and this is very, very important, is it handles massively large, size. So that's another thing about my personal data warehouse, because everything is Parquet. As you know, Excel kind of, at 1 million rows, it kind of dies on you. But here, Parquet file 1 million rows is like nothing. It laughs at 1 million rows. So it handles massively large files. And then the third thing is that you are able to query it because it stores data in what they call a columnar format. It's able to query by column, and therefore, yes, you're able to query it faster than, again, any other format. So that's why it's the industry standard, because it was built for this.
Nice.
So yeah, so if you're not familiar, so if someone's not familiar with Parquet, if you get one thing out of this whole thing, then please go deep into Parquet. And like I said, take the personal data warehouse, tear it apart, ask me questions. I've got the discussions formats. I would love to do nothing but talk about it all day long. So if you just want to talk to me about the inner workings of it, please, spare my wife from having to hear about it.
And then what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Regarding this subject, I would say the GitHub project for the personal data warehouse. There's a discussion forum, forums there. Just make a post, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So that would be the best thing for anything regarding this. For my general Blazor stuff, blazordata.net is where I post all my blog post.
Nice. And because you mentioned language models and AI as a consumer of this, what scenarios are you finding that the current language models just do a really good job at? What scenarios have you found that there still needs to be work done?
They do a very good job at coding. And it's funny because they do a very good job at anything related to language. I mean, that's why it's called large language model, right? So it's kind of surprising that coding, we constantly think of coding as a mathematical thing. But coding,
it's a language.
When code runs, obviously it's a mathematical thing, CPUs and whatever. But the art of coding, we're writing novels. It is a language. It's a language, right? So that is what the large language models are good at. So therefore, I stuck it into my, AI story builders, and it works well there. All the users there are extremely happy with it. I consider that a success. I've stuck it into this application, but I only stuck it in one place, and that is the transformations, because the transformations are where you create code to transform the data. That's what it's good at. That's where I put it. The place that LLMs are not good at, and never will be, in my opinion, is there is no intelligence in artificial intelligence, in my opinion. It's just a calculator, which is good. It's a very helpful. Calculators are good. We need calculators, okay? But that's it. It's just a calculator. It's just a big calculation machine. So therefore, anything that you ask it, that people are trying to get it to do, that's not a simple calculation, it's going to be bad at. So these agents are fine if it's okay that they don't work 25% of the time. But if people are trying to get these agents to do things where this thing needs to work, and it's like, it will never work. It's not a human. It just can't. And stop asking it to do things stop it.
Okay, so the scenarios
not a fan.
You said AI can't do, and in your opinion, it never will. And so, how do I summarize that as it calculating numbers or being right 100% of the time?
Okay, the thing that it does well is calculation. So if it's truly a calculation, it does it. Writing code, processing language is a calculation. So that's why it's darn good at it. But everything else, Like, hey, can you make sure that all my emails are answered politely and constructively so that I don't have to answer my emails anymore? It can never do it because that requires not just a calculation, it requires thinking, it requires morals, it requires a desire, and only humans possess that. Okay?
That's a very broad task too. Yeah.
And one more quick thing I want to toss in before we stop here is a book that's affected me so deeply was AI Snake Oil. And if you haven't read it, everyone should read it, full stop. The number one point of that book is AI is harmful mostly. There's other things in there, but the biggest one was whenever people try to use AI to do to predict something in the future. And they talk about, of course, how hospitals were using it to predict sepsis. And because there's no way to know the future, people were not getting treatment that should have gotten treatment, and therefore people died. You see, so we must be responsible in our use of AI. We should never harm people. And I feel very strongly about that. So, again, in my application, the AI is only being used to do a thing that it does, full stop. I could have shoved it in a bunch of other places. Yeah. No.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes. One of the parts of the AI guidelines that we have at work is never try to get a Gen AI tool to do something that you don't know how to do.
First.
If you don't know how to do it, it will not suddenly do something for you. It'll only help you with things that you already know how to do yourself. So, and many other things. But yeah, we're still learning, wading through all the hype of the technology. It's like it's so awesome at certain things, and we're trying to figure out what the limits are.
I would not have been able to write this personal data warehouse. I mean, I was sole developer. Every single code you see so far, because I haven't had outside contributors, I wrote all that code. There's no way I could have written that code if I had to without AI. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I was able to describe entire, 1,000-line classes, and the AI would write it. It would get it 95% of the way, but man, that's a lot. And I fix it up, and then I move on to my next task. I couldn't have written this without AI. So you
it's not
like I
don't like
AI.
Extensively in building it.
Huh?
So you used Copilot extensive in building it, or something else?
I use a whole tool suite. I'm telling you, I'm 5 different. So Copilot was one of them, but man, OpenAI. I even have sometimes you have to jump into Gemini. The different models I'm using. I'm all over the place. Yeah, it's a mix and match.
So with all of that you learned, as we kind of close up, that'd be a great tip to close on. Going forward, what are your top 3 favorite AI coding tools?
Number 1 has to be Copilot inside Visual Studio. However, there's just large coding, task that my next big go-to is OpenAI's, O1 models.
Okay.
The code that it produces is just, man, it could just, you have to spend a lot of time on the prompt, up front. But if you do it, what it comes out with is you're just like, oh, where have you been all my life? You just save me so much time. And then the third one that I use a lot, and this is an odd one, Google's Notebooks.
Okay.
I use that for my project planning. You just dump everything into it. And then you say, create a podcast. And then and now they have the mobile app so that I'm in the car, you're driving, and the podcast, there's 2 people discussing your deep, project notes and, and then I'm able to think about things and then I dump more stuff into it, and then I can say to it, okay, now create the project plan, and it spits it out. So that is, I use that. The time it saves me. I kid you not. The last time I used it on a project plan, this was a project plan that literally would have taken me 4 solid working days, and that thing was able to just spit it out, and I, of course, had to clean it up, but like in 20 minutes. Now, of course, I spent 2 weeks, no, actually more than that, 2 months dumping stuff into it, right? But I'm just saying, for me to actually have created this 20-page project plan manually, without it, it would have taken me 4 solid days. So that tool, I'm loving it. So I've got only good things to say, and whoever did that tool, please note that, man, sometimes people knock it out the park.
So this is notebooklm.google.
Yep.
Right?
And I'm telling you, I'm in that thing every day.
Awesome. And looks like it has a free plan as well as a paid plan.
Yep. And so I'm actually on the pay. That's one of those. So everything I talked about, all 3 of them, I pay for them because, I pay for all 3 of those products.
Perfect. Well, Michael, thanks so much for coming back on the show and talking to us about data and what you're doing lately. So, thanks so much. And until next time, dear listener, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure and DevOps podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Visit our sponsor, ClearMeasure, at www.clearmeasure.com. And on behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.